Hey guys, it's Miss Florin back with the second part of your voting rights lesson for government. We're going to talk about gerrymandering today. So, what is gerrymandering and how does it affect voter rights? I'm back here in the election 2020 unit packet, voter rights, that I attached last time. We're looking at the second half of the packet now. There are a couple of handouts in this packet. I'm going to walk you through the front. What is gerrymandering? And then I'm going to have you read two articles, what Pennsylvania's new congressional map means, and the drive against gerrymandering finds life in new ballot measures. And also, how should we deal with political gerrymandering for future elections? Also, I've attached this document to get you going. Hashtag monitoring the midterms. It was from the midterm elections in 2018. How gerrymandering impacts your vote. And it's got a short synopsis here with a couple of questions. These are essential questions that you can keep in mind when you're writing your half to a whole page response on this issue. So we're going to treat it just like a homework assignment. I want a half-page response minimum to things that you read in these articles so we can discuss them together. If you follow this link right here, it'll take you to a short video news segment right here on the PBS NewsHour, monitoring the midterms, how gerrymandering impacts your vote, and it will talk about a Supreme Court decision on gerrymandering in Texas, on racial gerrymandering and what it means for us as voters. So those are the resources I have for you, and now let's dig into it. What is gerrymandering and how does it affect us as voters? Well, a little background. Political gerrymandering has been an issue in our country for over 150 years, but recently there's been sort of a new revival in the push to undo a lot of the political lines that have been drawn over the past decades. Much of this push is due to the race-based district apportionment that has happened in many states, especially following the Shelby County Supreme Court case, which you'll read about, which lifted some aspects of the voting rights law. So remember the 15th Amendment voting rights law came into effect and was reauthorized in 1975, and that said that states that were sort of famous for disenfranchising their black voters were going to have federal oversight now of their voting laws. So that means that the federal government oversees any changes to voting laws in those states. Well, some of those oversights have been lifted, and so now states in the South and other states are able to change their voting laws and redraw those lines around districts, which is where this whole gerrymandering debate comes in. Why does it matter where they draw the line? Well, because it determines the representation. It can determine which party wins in that area of that state and essentially who gains power and which of the people within that district are then represented. Okay, so let's look here, the very beginning article on page 19 of your packet. What is gerrymandering? At the writing of the Constitution, the framers decided to leave it up to the states to decide how they would pick their representatives for Congress. Remember, this was the big state, small state compromise. Big states wanted representation by proportion of population, and the small states didn't. They wanted equal representation. So we have equal representation, 2 senators each in the Senate, and we have proportional or population-based representation by state in the House of Representatives. So the House of Representatives is far larger. It's got 435 members representing all 50 states, whereas the Senate only has 100 members, 2 per state. So the only requirement that the federal government gave the states was that their representation had to be based on population. And the population count had to be updated every 10 years, which is what the U.S. Census is for that's going on now. So it updates every 10 years based on the population in each state. Many states took to dividing up voting districts to favor certain political parties or interest groups, right? Because they wanted to gain power. They wanted to maintain their hold on power. In 1812, the word gerrymander was created to describe Massachusetts Governor Gerry's contorted drawing of voting districts to favor his political party. The mander part of the word was taken from the fact that his newly drawn districts looked like a strange salamander. Okay, wow, that's a strange looking district. Why isn't it square or rectangular or some kind of shape that makes sense? Well, because drawing the line this way got him the majority of voters from his party and therefore allowed the Massachusetts governor to be reelected. From then on, the practice of trying to draw voting district lines to favor a certain group has been known as gerrymandering. Imagine a state as a geographical grid with a certain number of voters. Say a percentage of them traditionally vote Republican, represented by the color red, and the other half traditionally vote Democratic, represented by the blues. After receiving its new census numbers, there are several ways that a state could divide up these voters, okay? So it'd be great if every state was just a perfect rectangle like this. We've got about 60% of this voting population voting blue or Democratic, and we've got about 40% voting red or Republican. Perfect representation would divide up this state like this in columns. So there would be 2 red districts perfectly representing those voters and 3 blue districts perfectly representing those voters. And of course, if you were running for Congress in this state, you would win if you were a Democrat, because there are more blue voters in the state, and under these lines, the blue would have perfect representation, and therefore they'd have a majority. But there are different ways that you can draw these lines, and people are aware of this. Okay, you could draw it this way instead. You could chunk them up into rectangles this direction. So there's more blue voters in each of these chunks, 5 districts, and all of them are going to be represented by a blue, right? Because there's more blue voters in each of the precincts, so that means that overall it's going to go to blue. Or you could make it even more complicated. Look at these lines, neither fair nor compact. Okay, so you grab a majority of red voters and then you extend your boundary to include just a few blue voters, and that cuts up these blue voters to take away their power so that red wins here. All right, same thing here. You get a majority of red voters and then you reach out to grab just a couple blue voters from each of these what would be other precincts, voting districts, and then red wins. Okay, so then you end up with only 2 blue districts and 3 red districts, and then Republicans can win. And that's not what's supposed to happen, right? Because the Republicans are in the minority in this voting state. So that's an example of how gerrymandering works. It's redrawing those boundary lines to favor one group to keep them or put them into power. Here's another example of how gerrymandering can dilute the vote of certain political parties or groups. Okay, assume that there's a regular division where a majority votes over here one way and another majority votes over here another way. Well, if you draw the line like this, you can cut up the blue majority area and end up with a majority of yellow. So we see that here. You can cut it up different ways, either to favor blue or yellow. Okay, so there's a problem with articulating what the problem really is with gerrymandering. Political gerrymandering is valid in the United States. Every state should get to decide how its own districts are drawn, unless the party in power goes too far in assuring that they're going to win an election by drawing the lines a certain way. But how far is too far, and how do we know where that line is? Well, here are some of the problems. There is no regular or fair starting point. Natural housing patterns are not perfect grids, and existing lines are a result of past gerrymandering for many, many decades. Okay? Critical pockets are not clearly identifiable. So they're talking about groups of people that believe certain things or vote certain ways. It's not always obvious where those groups or pockets are, and so the gerrymandering might not be intentional of dividing up the powers of those groups. Politics are fleeting and people change their minds from election to election. People also move and change the political makeup of residential areas. Gerrymandering, a fair amount is justified, people will say. Past gerrymandering of another party justifies the gerrymandering to a degree when redrawing the lines at present, right? Because people are trying to undo the gerrymandering of the past. So these are some of the issues that we run into when talking about this complicated issue. So I want you to watch this video. It's very short, about the Supreme Court decision in Texas, and try to understand what's going on there. I want you to go back to the Voting 2020 packet that we're looking at and read these two articles. This one's from Vox, what Pennsylvania's new congressional map means. And we're going to look at it. Wow, there's some wacky district lines in Pennsylvania. And the next article, Drive Against Gerrymandering finds new life in ballot initiatives. So there are a number of ballot initiatives happening to try to address this issue. And then, how do we solve political gerrymandering? I want you to come up with some ideas. You don't need to use this tree map. Like I said, you're just going to write a half-page response. And these are some of the questions that I want you to consider when you're writing that response. How does gerrymandering affect the electoral process? What does the Constitution say about it? Why do policy experts and concerned citizens say gerrymandering leaves certain populations, such as African Americans, at a disadvantage? And then, what are the dividing lines between your voting district and neighboring districts? And who decides those boundary lines? You could do a little extra research if you wanted and see what's going on here in Oregon. We're actually in one of the largest, geographically, voting districts that spans all of Eastern Oregon and all of Southern Oregon. So we get one representative for that voting district in Congress. And do you think independent commissions could be effective in preventing gerrymandering? Why or why not? So just some things to think about when you're writing your response. All right, that's it on gerrymandering. That's it for Gov today. I hope you have a great day, and I'll be talking to you next week in our first live Zoom sessions. Okay, and have some good discussions then. Okay, take care, guys.